everyone, and welcome back to Lawny Lou. Today I'm going to be doing my first book review on this channel, and today's book review is on the first read of 2023, which is, among others, by Jo Walton. Walton. As you can see, I have annotated. Well, not annotated actually, I highlight, and as you can see, I mean, I have done it on the train as well, so that's a bit wobbly. But I don't annotate, makes me think of uni pretty much, but I highlight key quotes. I am actually using this book for uni, to be fair, sort of. I'm mostly using it for my novel. It has helped me a lot in terms of writing my novel, because it's the same genre, follows the same sort of fantasy, and it's just really helpful, and also a very good read. So I have used it in one of my university essays, and it's helping me find inspiration to write my novel. Among others, it's a fantasy novel, magic realism, and the protagonist, Mori, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's a 15-year-old girl, she's Welsh, and this book is formatted in diary entries and shows her time from, if we get the date up, from the 1st of May 1975, and it goes through until 20th of February 1980. So you follow her for just under a year, and she writes every day. So you have what she does every day, even if it's like a short little snippet. I just realised my necklace was untucked. That's a bit sad. There we go, it's out now. The fantasy of this book are fairies, which is what would help me with my novel. I've mentioned before that I'm obsessed with fairies. They are my entire personality at this point, and this book was actually recommended to me by a uni mate who said that it would really help me with my novel because it surrounds a lot of the same themes. Honestly guys, I was reading it thinking, is this my novel? There's me thinking I've come up with something like really original, and then I read this book and I'm like, oh, damn it, somebody beat me to it. Side note, I will go into more depth about my novel at some point, just know it's about fairies. Sort of a given now really, isn't it? So I'll say how much I rated this at the end. I'll tell you my reasoning before. I think that's probably what I'm gonna do. Yeah, let's do that. I will admit, it took me a bit to get fully invested into the story. It is a bit of a slow start, not to the point that it puts you off, like you are intrigued, and there's some bits that Mori writes about and you're thinking, what? I need to know more about that. So there's little nuggets that sort of foreshadow what's going to happen later on, but she doesn't go into a great detail about it until like a quarter of the way through, and characters that she mentions we don't really get to meet until halfway through. One of the main characters that's really important to Mori is Wim, and you don't meet him until like halfway through when she starts going to the book clubs. I'll also try to keep this as spoiler free as I possibly can. I don't spoil things, I'm just a bit wary that maybe I'll say something that somebody was like, oh, that really ruined it for me. So this is spoiler free, but just watch with a pinch of salt. I think that's fair. Disclaimer, might spoil it, I don't know. We'll see where my mouth runs. Even though you don't get to meet some of the characters until like halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, they are all really interesting in their own right, and some are interesting in a bad way, like you go, but I think that's the fantasy element sort of playing in, that it's, you know, they're sort of bizarre characters because they live a little bit differently to us, or they know a world that perhaps we don't. And the fantasy in this is very subtle, it's very minimalistic. Mori, when she mentions fairies, she just talks about it very casually as if, well, you know, because there's fairies, right? Which of course there are. Duh. She also talks about magic very casually, and her mother, who I won't say much about because I do feel like that might be a spoiler, but her mum uses black magic, and it's sort of Mori's experience with knowing when to do magic and when to not, but she's in a very real setting. Like, everybody else is completely oblivious to our knowledge that this is going on and that this exists. And it's just so, it's so clever how casually it's mentioned. Like, Mori will just sort of go, oh yeah, I did magic and that then happened. You know, it's almost as if it's a way for her to manifest things. It's really clever, and I love how it's just so normal for Mori to talk about. Obviously as well, with her diaries, it's very personal, so she can talk about anything she wants. So if she, you know, it's her diary, it's personal. And so for her, it is then, yeah, this is a common occurrence. Like, magic is just real, and there's no real explanation. So for that, I do feel like perhaps there are a couple of questions that readers could have that aren't always answered. Like, I have quite a few questions about her mum. The views on magic, like, is it a universal thing or is it just the family? I sort of want to, you know more about that. And so a lot of questions remain unanswered, but I don't feel like it's in an unsatisfactory way. It's just a bit like, I don't know, what's the word? It's a bit clever, really. It's definitely not unsatisfying, and the ending's not unsatisfying either. Like, it sort of wraps it up all nicely, and you know that whatever happens, Mori's going to be okay, despite how stubborn she can be at times. She's happy with letting her life go with the flow for now. Another thing to point out, which I really like, is how it's semi-autobiographical. There's an author's note at the beginning. So it mentions in the author's note that this is sort of based around Jo Walton's experiences. I don't know how true a lot of it is, but she is writing from experience, if you will, which I found very similar to Jeanette Winterson's Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, in the fact that they say it's not an autobiography, it's not a biography, this is a piece of fiction. And you're like, okay, but you're drawing elements from your real life, which we all do as writers. Everything you write, I think, is semi-autobiographical somehow, even if you don't mean it to be. But this book draws a lot of parallels to Jeanette Winterson's writing, in that it's a fictionalized autobiography, if you will.
I have said autobiography too many times. It sounds weird. Am I even saying it right anymore? Autobiography. Something like that.
Talking about more parallels, Jo Walton says in the author's note at the beginning, people tell you to write what you know, but I found that writing what you know is much harder than making it up, which links, or doesn't like deliberately reference, I don't know if it deliberately references, but it's very similar to Jeanette Winterson's opening quote, which is something, I'm just looking for it on my bookshelf. Oranges are not the only fruit. Can't actually find the quote at the minute, but it's something along the lines of, people tell you to write what you know, but I think it's better advice to tell you to write what you don't know, which they're just a little bit similar, and I just loved that. And this is also a very good book if you want to go read it. Truly recommend. This isn't fantasy, but they're very similar in the aspect of having a small child protagonist going through similar experiences that the author went through, but it's fictionalized, but there's elements of truth in it. It's just really clever, and I love it when a book does that. There's also lots of other references to literature that are actually mentioned in this. She talks about, suddenly all the books that she's mentioned have just gone out of my head, but Mori reads, oh my goodness, she loves the library, the school library. She gets sent books from her family, and she's reading like 10 books a week, which is insane because I can just about read 10 books in a year, Jesus. But because of that, it's clear that this book is a love ode to books, to storytelling, to libraries. It emphasises not only the magic of the fantasy, but the magic of storytelling. Genuinely an appreciation of all things literature, which, as a bookworm, as an inspiring author, that's just beautiful. So overall, I would rate this book 4 out of 5 stars. What you must know about my marking is I do feel like I can be quite generous. I've rated quite a few books in my time 5 stars and then have read an actual 5-star book and gone, maybe I was a bit too kind. This is genuinely 4 out of 5 stars. Wasn't 5 out of 5 just because it was quite slow to get into. I did sort of wonder when it was going to pick up or if it was going to remain the same, but keep reading. It's not a book to be DNF'd. It's not a book to give up on because it gets so juicy and there's so much to think about afterwards. I remember when I finished it, it was sort of you close the book and you think, wow, where do I even begin, you know? And as you can see, really quite helpful for me. These are all quotes that I have used in my essay or will use for inspiration for my writing. Yeah, it was really good and deserves the awards that it's got, rightly so. Also, can we appreciate front cover? I don't think I said that. Beautiful front cover, beautiful back cover as well. It's gorgeous, it's a stunning book, and it's got cute little illustrations like there. They're just really cute, and that's what I mean by diary format as well. Some of them are quite short, some of them are really freaking long. So yeah, that's my first book review for YouTube. I feel like I've just messed up my hair. Oh no, we're alright. Just played with it and I just felt like a massive loop. Let me know in the comments below if you have read that book or if it's on your to be read. If it is on your to be read, pick it up after your current read. Honestly, you won't regret it. It's really good. And it's also a fantasy book that doesn't need too much thinking, weirdly enough, because of the magical realism, it's quite easy to follow. And the fact that Mori just mentions it as if it's like, well, yeah, you should know about fairies, right? You don't really have to think about the fantasy too much or try and bend your head around to understand it. It's really easy to follow. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you've read it and what you thought about it. If you have, if you're going to read it, or if this has persuaded you to read it. You know, maybe my persuasion skills are quite good, I don't know. Let me know. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Go over to my Instagram at Lawnies_stories to see a written down version of the review for this book. So thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a little comment down below. It means the world to me when you do. Honestly, I love reading your comments, even if we're like besties or I don't know who you are. Honestly, every comment means the world. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye!